Hi, my name is Eric Nitschke and I'm the author of Dirhtml. This video is an overview of the general use of version 4.845, so let's get started. Here's the opening screen. Normally the first thing you do is select a folder you want to build from, but in this case I'm going to select a default, which is the folder that Dirhtml itself is installed to, and go ahead and build the file and launch it. So here's the file. This HTML file includes links to every file in the Dirhtml folder and all of its subfolders. As you would expect, all these various links are clickable. Just like any HTML file, the anchors point to subsections of the file. For example, there's root and help. So there's a generated file. This particular file uses the blue-white border script right here. There are other scripts. Let's try some more. Here's tan. Basically the same, just different colors. You note also that there's no folder in that whole div thing around the outside. Pale gray. Again, basically the same, just different colors. Some table borders have been added. Div recursive is a little bit different. In this one there's an HTML div added and the anchors are inside the div over here. Everything is still functionally identical. There are other scripts that are not in the drop-down by default. For example, recursive with descriptions. Let's try that one. In this script, it's actually reading a file from each folder and dropping it right into the code. For example, here we have application folder. Is text that came from a file that's right in this root folder. Actually, this file, description Dirhtml, it could be anything. And here's the contents of the file. There's some HTML code and the text itself. There's more text for help, and there's the description file for the help folder. Now, suppose we don't want to see all these files. For example, we don't want to see index.html, which we just built. It's easy to exclude files. So we're just going to say let's only see files that match the text blue or HTML. So that'll be only files with those characters in them. Build it. And there we go. There's our blues, and Dirhtml, of course, has the characters HTML in it. So there's our limited file search. Now some options. You can do various things here, including, for example, let's add a date, and we'll reduce the file columns down to 3. And there we have our 3 columns, and our dates have been added. Let's change the doc type to XHTML strict, rebuild it. Looks identical. Internally it's a little bit different. It's still validating. Sorting. Right now we're sorting by sending file name. As you can see, here's our blues, and we're getting bigger to our D's, and finally to our largest with a V. That's what I call a column sort. If you don't want a column sort and you want a regular sort, you would just unclick sort by columns. And so now we have our blues at the top, and then down to our D's, and these rows finally to our V. Just a matter of personal choice. Words. In the generated file you'll see some default words, like for example anchors and root, which can be changed right on the screen. There's our root. You'll note that I've used the HTML codes for less than and greater than, which need to be used there because the root is not an actual HTML code. So let's add something for files. And look at it again. There's our files. Recursive. Right now this file is processing the root folder, the Dirhtml folder, and every subfolder. In this case is only one. Let's suppose you don't want any subfolders, you just want the main folder. You would just unclick build files recursively and then rebuild. And there it is, our help folder is gone. Also our anchor table is gone because there's no subfolders, and the anchor table would point to the subfolders. Another recursive build type is framed. Let's try that one. This is actually using an HTML frame set instead of the div-like structure that was used before. This actually is several files. There's one file per folder, but all the links are still there. You just navigate, through the set of files as you would in any frame set. Input, output. Once you build a file that you like, you might want to consider saving all your settings. So you just click F9 and save your settings to the file name of your choice. And it's noted right up here in the title line, and then later you can read it back and it'll restore all your settings to all the various tabs here. Alternately, let's suppose you want to build one file and you want to change it occasionally when the contents of the folder changes. You would just save a batch file, and I'm going to call this settings1.bat. Then in the future, you can rebuild this entire set of files that's in the browser right now by running the batch file and totally staying away from the Dirhtml GUI in its entirety. Let's save that. This auto launch, basically if you run that batch file and auto launch is clicked, it will automatically launch the file immediately. If that's not clicked, it won't be launched. So that would be appropriate if you're running Apache or some other web server. So there it is. There's your general overview of Dirhtml version 4.845. Thank you very much for watching.